Hey, thanks for jumping in the Far-Flung Tin Can podcast, produced and edited by Jonathan Warbay, who didn't show up today. So let's just get that out of the way. Today's episode,
Also, let me get this plant out of the way because I keep nudging it.
Did you get Steven's permission to move the plants? He
Yes.
sets cameras up. Today's episode is number, and I don't know what number the episode is. I don't know what order he's
17.
Yeah, today episode number 17.
It's probably like 4, but we'll go with 17.
Yeah, maybe episode 5 or 17. And we're gonna jump in with our album and the process, songwriting. The last album is Take a Risk. Came out a month ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got Tobin Shoemate. Did I say it right?
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever said his last name.
Shoemate, actually.
Yeah. I've said
Italian.
his name wrong a lot of times.
What did you say?
I've said Jobin,
Oh,
Tojo.
okay.
Like I've mixed you and your wife's names up a bunch. And then we have Jeremy Caruthers, who produced and wrote how many songs on the album?
17.
I produced all of the songs on the album and wrote a couple of them.
Yeah. So how did you two guys meet? I know you've both been a part of Far-Flung for a while. And when did y'all start like working together on stuff?
Oh, man. I don't remember like when we met. Do you? No, I remember working on Far-Flung stuff a long time ago. And then I remember us doing a song
Yeah.
together. Me, you, and JoJo.
Yeah.
The Goodness of the Lord.
Uh-huh.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, Lord, that
Yeah,
was probably
that's-
10 years
yeah,
ago.
it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So, yeah, I mean, we did that. It was, of course, Far-Flung Connection.
Yeah. Campus
Um,
choir.
Yeah, the university. We'll just keep going back. But yeah, so it's probably been like 10 years of music making together, although fairly
Yeah.
sporadically.
Yeah.
You are both on and a part of the first Far-Flung album. Is that right?
Well, the first Together project.
First Together project.
Yes.
That's
But-
right, because we did a studio. The first one was, I
And-
have to say,
and,
No Turning Back.
Yeah, the first one was No Turning Back.
Okay, so and that's on iTunes. You can go check that out if you hadn't heard that. No Turning Back, which Caruthers was not a part of.
No, I was in the room, but Joseph Fowler had the reins on that one.
Okay,
Did a great job.
and you were in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah.
had you done albums before, recording before that? Had you been involved in like stuff?
No, you're asking me all these. I'm like having to like dig into my brain. I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay,
I think that may have been the first thing, other than like a campus choir thing. But
that doesn't count.
okay, doesn't. I don't even think I was in a campus choir thing. So
Okay.
yes, the answer, yeah, that was the first one.
Okay,
For me.
walk me through the albums that you've been involved with, like all the albums in Far-Flung. What that's been. Walk me through that.
The first one for me was Together project.
Okay.
Recording in Guatemala, which is probably our most popular recording even to date. Just a lot of great songs. I think that album was kind of like the culmination of a lot of years from a lot of people, whereas our other albums since then, it's kind of like an artist, right? Their first album like blows you away because they've been writing those songs for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Their
Yeah.
next album, they have 7 months to write it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to try to fit,
That's true.
that same amount of goodness that you had in 6 years into 7 months. So, but that first one was kind of like John Bellion references us as like Far-Flung is the artist. And I think that first album was like everybody bringing their lifetime of work to the table. And it's just a great project that still very proud of to this day. Like production, sonically, everything. It's a miracle we got the product that we did from that recording with the
And you
volcano
engineered
going off.
that, right?
Right.
So we ordered gear. How did that?
We rented
Sorry.
stuff there and then brought some stuff. And there was a couple guys who arrived there before us, like Travis Frazier and some guys that like got the recording set up. Then we did it all in one night. And then Etienne told me the night before, he's like, dude, like you're gonna have to play bass on the recording. I was like, oh great. So no bass, on the airplane, like listening to these all original songs I had never heard. Yeah, and then had fun that night, kind of running back and forth from the board to the bass, trying to
We were
get all that right.
supposed to like record that over like 3 or 4 days,
2 days at least, yeah.
and then it ended up being like what we started late at night.
Yeah, we started probably 7, maybe even 8 p.m. if we're being fair, like, and then ended at 4 o'clock in the morning or
Yeah,
something
it was
like
like an
that
all-night
after
thing.
traveling for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
like we got in Guatemala that day, and then we had to set everything up. We like rehearsed, and then we recorded it all night until
yeah, until the album was done, basically.
yeah.
And I remember just going into a room that night and like going back on the computer and like listening to everything, and Kyle over my shoulder, and the bar at that point was like, did everything get recorded? Like that was it. It wasn't even like, how does it sound? Like, do we have an album? Do we have enough stuff for an album? And I was like, yeah. And I remember it like turning to you and like, man, I think like, I mean, because we didn't put any like engineering time into that. It was just like plug in, press record.
Yeah.
And even that night, I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be good. And it turned out very well.
You
And
feel like
that's
that set a tone, Far Flung, like that Together project for what was to come? That was like what? How many years ago? 7, 6
2000
years ago. I feel
2014.
like that's kind of set a tone for
yeah.
creativity and music and production and
Yeah, I think so. I think that, we had done stuff before that project, especially in hindsight. Who would have guessed? I mean, I think like there's songs like "Come Lord Jesus" that have 100 some thousand views just on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and you can imagine like the stream numbers that they are from different platforms. So, I mean, for us, it's big. I mean, I just saw that "You're Welcome" from Moana has 1 billion views. We're not quite there
Oh my
yet,
gosh.
but
Oh
yeah,
my.
for
if we can
us,
put The Rock on one of our songs, it would be.
right? Yeah,
Uh,
that's like big. So I think in hindsight, yeah, I think it was also a moment for us that's like, Kyle had this wild idea to take way too many people to a foreign country and record an album outside at this place with with nothing, really no idea how we were gonna do it. When he asked me to do it, it was just, and it's the same thing ever since then. I'm just like, yeah, yeah, we'll do it. Whatever, we'll figure it out.
Okay, so we went from Together project to Compass, Lead Me.
Lead Me.
What was the next album? Lead Me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a studio album.
We
And
recorded like
across the
across the
street.
street, yeah, and just an empty school room or
Oh yeah,
apartment.
like in a classroom.
Yeah, and we had got like uh like dividers from like cubicles, like that you would find in an office and just stack them up. You remember that? And again, it was like it wasn't Guatemala with a volcano, but it was like we've got 3 days to track everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're in Virginia at the time, so you're driving
Right.
in for it. People are driving in.
I remember you and Ashley bought a portable air conditioner.
Yeah.
Because there was no air, and we were on the 3rd floor, and it was like 100 degrees.
My wife was not having it. She's like, I'm not getting ready to be hot.
She comes rolling down the hallway with this like air conditioner on wheels.
And the next album after Lead Me is what?
Together.
Together project. So every other
Further
album is Together project.
Right.
Right?
It's well, yeah, yeah. That's how it's turned out to be. Yeah, and in between there, we've released songs like Compass, and we did Reckless Love, and we did, we've done different things like that, singles in between. But
I heard one of the guys in the Elevation Worship Circle say their early albums, you have like 3 worship leaders who each bring 4 songs.
Mm.
And then they just put them on the album. It's 12 songs.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we grew as a group, it stopped being these 4 songs are like the Chris Brown, and this is Mac, and this is, and there was no like kind of union for the album. And then it became like Elevation.
Mm.
I don't get that with the Together project. That felt like like a unifying thing, even though everybody's bringing different songs. But have you noticed like the creative process for Far-Flung and people bring songs, and has it evolved from, all right, everybody just bring something? Is there like an inspiring thought that you guys get, that you think the team gets, and says, all right, this album is going to go in this direction? Take a risk. Like, how did that happen? Was there like a meeting where it's like, all right, here's how it's gonna be? Because if there was, y'all didn't invite me. How are things coming together for Far-Flung and for this album?
For Take a Risk, um, I'll just address that album, and then we can talk about that broader point too. But for Take a Risk, I had a song, All You Ever Wanted, and it was just gonna be like a personal song, and Kyle like heard it or walked in the office or something and was like, "What is that? Like, I like that." And he listened and was like, "Okay, yeah, I like it too. That's cool." By then, excuse me, no one had ever heard it. So he was like, "Can that be a Far-Flung song? Like, I'd love for that to be a Far-Flung song." And I was like, no, I mean, not really. Like, I don't mind using the song for that. I just don't know how that would fit amongst other Far-Flung songs we might do, or the library of songs the catalog we've already put out. And he didn't seem too worried about it. He just liked the song. So a couple days later, Tobin came in the office, and I think Kyle might have said like, "Hey, go listen to the song Jeremy has." You listened, it was like, "Yeah, that's good." And then you mentioned a pop sounding song that you had or might have. Um, you ended up sending me that voice memo. Like, I put some stuff down on it. We might have worked just a little bit that day. You showed me. And then once I produced that song, like, it was like, "Oh man, that one's really good." And that's Tobin. That sounds like Far-Flung. Even though the music's so
Yeah.
different, like, that's Tobin. Like, he's Far-Flung. Then, so I'm like, okay, well, we got two good songs. And then from there, more and more people started coming to the table with stuff. Um, and then it was just like the conversation among me and Kyle, really, and you, Brian, here was like, "Do you want to do a different sounding album? Do you want to do more like pop sounding stuff?" And it just seemed like we had too many good songs to not do it. And for us, it was kind of taking a risk, so that the name of your song fit the situation, and of course became the title track, and that's how Take a Risk happened.
It was funny because I came in that day and listened to the songs that Jeremy had put, and I think you showed me two, maybe like a song that Brian had done, and then you
Oh,
showed me that.
yeah, maybe we already had done the dark, like a little demo of the dark or
Maybe.
something.
So I had listened to like those two, and then I think you showed me a little bit of the song Brooklyn Love Came Down. What is that?
Oh, the
Earth and Sky.
Earth and
Earth and
Sky.
Sky.
And so those three songs I heard, and like I remember thinking like Earth and Sky I was like, this is K-pop. And so I was like, this is
You
fun.
said that.
And so like on Take a Risk, I had already written that song and was like fleshing it out. And honestly, I'd never written a pop song or like gone in and said, I'm going to write a pop song. And so I was like, this song, it was going to have a worship vibe, take a risk on me, God, like it was more of that kind of surrender type song. But then when you guys were sharing that, the vibe that you guys had already kind of been working on, I was like, maybe why don't we like step across here and see if we can cross over into that. And so then I sent you a clip of Take a Risk, and then you, off of the audio clip, I sent an acapella voice clip, and like I'm holding my
Yeah, I remember
kids,
this.
and it's just me singing acapella, and Jeremy literally builds a whole track to that voice clip I sent, and
And you had whatever kid you were holding
yeah,
made a noise in the voice memo, and that's still in the song.
yeah.
I sampled it, and if you listen closely, you can hear it.
I was blown away because like Jeremy said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he sends this whole track back, and I was like, it was one of those ones like you're just sending like a little voice clip, and you're not thinking what it can be or what it could be.
Yeah, and that was one of those. Like, it turned out to be one of my favorite songs on the album, and that was one of those that was so easy. like to produce. Like it just like just hearing the voice memo, I was like, oh yeah. Like, you know, a lot of people talk about like this weird creative part where like a song like exists, right? And it's like you find it.
Mhm.
Like it's just in the atmosphere, like God puts it there, however you want to look at it. And like you just happen to find this song or these lyrics. And it was one of those where it's like when you sent me the voice memo, I was like, yeah, like that song exists out there somewhere, and I'm the one who gets to put it together,
Mhm.
in the studio, which was really cool. And like I said, it was easy. Man. I think probably I would say 70 to 80% of what you hear in that song in the final master version was done the first 2 hours after you sent me the voice memo.
Yeah.
So it was just like what it went down, and it was like, yeah, that's it. For some reason, I sampled a drum line.
Yeah.
I know why I did. It was just kind of a slower tempo. Wanted to have it more energy, and
Yeah.
just you get a snare in there going, "Taka, taka, 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 taka," and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it sounds like it's the fastest song in the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was just a little side note there. But yeah, I mean, it was just from the beginning was a great song. The
I think
melodically everything was.
all of Far-Flung is, I mean, I don't know, but for Take a Risk, the whole album, I think all of us kind of were like, okay, we've never gone down this road before. And, we've always done worship and, more, serious feeling songs. And
Take
so,
me beyond the
yeah.
surface.
Yeah, like, everybody wants, that's the thing about group writing too. When everybody just brings songs, like
Yeah.
everybody wants to write the epic song. Everybody wants to write the ballad that like hits and like,
Nobody wants to be a filler.
yeah, nobody wants to be the filler song. Everybody's like, what's the deepest thing I can say? And like, what's the highest melody I can sing? So I always think that's interesting. And I think this album is good because there is such a mix and a flow, and everybody's singing at a different level and a different pace. And I think we were all like, a pop album, Far Flung, what's this going to be like? But listening through it and listening back, it still has the same DNA.
Yeah,
Still has the same heart, it's the same sound, but it's a different take on it, and it still feels like worship to
and
me.
I think what's really cool, me too, and I think a big part of that is, like you said, I remember like if I ever sat down, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to write something for Far Flung. It's like I was trying to fit into this mold.
Mhm.
Or like Tobin and Jojo wrote this song and that was popular. So let me try to write something with that same,
Mhm.
DNA. Or let me try to write something like Come Lord Jesus, because it's just so popular. Let me like maybe if I put
Yeah.
it in 6/8 and I put it in the key of
Six
E,
eight is
right?
the key.
Maybe I put it in the key of E. Well, maybe then we'll sing it. You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
think all of these things, not selfishly, but you want something to work for the group,
Yeah.
and you want to provide value. And I think this one was so different because it was literally just an expression of whatever you happen to have,
Yeah.
in your mind. And I think that that's why, to me, why it still feels like worship is because it is an honest expression.
Mm.
It's not like, you can't do that or that won't work in a worship service. So let's do this. It's literally like, kind of like an unfiltered expression that everybody
Yeah.
was able to offer. And that's what I think really, really gave life to this album and why we're getting such great feedback from it.
Yeah.
It resonates with people.
Mm.
Just the humanity of it, the realism, and we joked like, well, is this statement like theologically correct? And is this and we were just kind of like, man, we're just like we're sons and daughters of God and we're just expressing ourselves, and
Yeah.
you want to do that responsibly, but you can also do that freely.
That's
And
good.
I think that's what we accomplished on this album,
Yeah.
really.
It felt liberating creatively. As a
Yes.
creative, it felt like you were talking about that box. And it felt for me, and I know you wrote two songs on it that feel like they're outside of the box too. And it's just creatively, it felt good to be able to express something in a different way and not necessarily be, because I mean, if we look at worship music, I hope I'm not sounding really critical right now, but when we look at worship music for the genre of worship music, it has become very like standard. like everybody kind of sounds the same. For the season we're in, we'll break out of it, but it's kind of a standard thing. And so you could feel like you're boxed in when you're trying to write worship music. It has to be verse, chorus, bridge two, vamp, vamp,
Vamp,
outro.
vamp. Yeah.
But it's liberating to be able to get to be creative and not feel held into that box and to say what you want to say and sing it how you want to sing it, and it can have its own sound, and it's still worship. I don't know, I felt liberated, or you know through this project I thought it was very creatively liberating.
I like the idea of trying something different and not being afraid, but it not being orchestrated.
Mm.
Not like, guys, we're aging out. Our sound is aging. We have to
Right.
like do something. It was more like, hey, hey, I got a song that sounds different. I got a song that wouldn't fit on that other album, but like, I think Tobin would sound great on this, or I think JoJo would sound great on this. Let's try that.
Yeah, I mean, the songs were there. It was just like, it wasn't like, okay, we gotta, like you said, we gotta do something different. It's like, I mean, at one point we had like 4 songs, and it was like, these are all good songs. So are we just not gonna use them? Or are we just gonna use them?
Mm.
And it's like, well, we want to release an album, so let's use them.
Well, it
You
like
know?
started like maybe we'll just release like a little EP. And we'll do a
Right.
pop EP.
And then people like Zeke.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Zeke was like, man, I might have this song. And
Yeah.
dude,
It's
it's
Yeah.
so good.
so good. Yeah, it's just like one of my favorite, just like put the windows down and
Yeah.
go. Feels like
Yeah.
heaven. Like that was Zeke. I know Rob and Crystal. Um, I know Whitney really contributed to that one as well. And by the way, too, you talked about production, and whenever we do like official credits, we don't really do that at Far Flung. We just kind of put stuff out, and people are like, "Who did that?" you know. But Rob, the funny thing about that song is Rob Alley. I was like trying to get him to produce it, and he was either busy or just couldn't get it done. He was basically just like, "No, dude, like you do it." And so I basically my production on that song is a almost carbon copy of what he did originally for the demo. Um, I just kind of went in and then added some things that some different little things that I put up throughout the album on top of that. But that was a lot of Rob Alley on that song, and I kind of just remade what he did because he wouldn't produce it for me.
The crazy thing about Far-Flung from the beginning, and Kyle, our leader, when you were asking this about how the process of like how do we bring songwriters and things
Yeah.
like that, a lot of times it was Kyle saying, all of us are musicians on our own, and then he would hear a song even outside of what we presented, and he'd say, hey, can we do this song for a project, and hey, what would you think about adding this song into a project, or he's reaching out and asking, and then so that was a lot of the process, I think, of songs coming together, was his just tuning into each person and bringing songs along. But the cool thing about Farfunk from the very beginning is it is a volunteer. I mean, I think it's shifting now, but up to this point, it had been a lot of volunteer. Like when you did the Together project in Guatemala and did the Together project in Brazil, and you were engineering those and producing those, you were basically volunteering. And the people that bring songs and the musicians that come on these trips, they're paying to be there a lot of times. And Rob, offering up his skill. It's what's crazy is these are all volunteer produced albums, and we're not going to some label or some production company to get it done, but everybody's offering up their gift, which is really cool to see the project come together. Like the graphics, the any videos that you've seen, it's all volunteer, which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
true? I don't
No,
know.
I think there is this unique thing to that one, there's this common bond that Far-Flung has in shared experience. Now, it's not all the same experience. Not everybody was on the Amazon. I wasn't on the Together Project. Not everybody was in campus choir or at Lee University. But for the most part, there is a shared experience. Yours might have been in Africa. Yours might have been in Alaska. Yours might have been at Lee University. But we kind of all come different backgrounds, but there's this shared experience. And everything Far Flung is genuinely a collaboration.
Hmm.
And that's like the thing now. it's not like right now, what seems to be happening is not one person.
Yeah.
It's all collaborations.
I want to just speak to that because I feel like it's something God has really been speaking to me this past season on a spiritual level. Is like music can feel so competitive, and it's all so comparative. You're comparing constantly. Like I'm not Jeremy, and he operates at this level, and I don't sing like Zeke, or I don't sing like Brian, and I don't play the guitar like Nico. So
Yeah.
and it can feel so comparative and like, so maybe I don't have a place here because I'm not at such and such level. But I feel like Far-Flung is there's this breaking down where it's not competitive, it's not comparative, but it's collaborative. And I think that's kingdom. And that's what's so beautiful about Far-Flung is it's a bringing together of like what you have to offer. And I don't have to be Brian. I don't have to write like you. I don't have to sing
Yeah.
like you. I don't have to minister to like you, and you're powerful at all those things. And I could shrink back in my gifting or shrink back in my songwriting, or like Jeremy's an amazing producer. And I'm like, I may never have a song like producing skill, so I could shrink back, or anybody on the team could shrink back. But instead, people continue to bring things to the table because there's this acceptance, there's this teamwork, there's this camaraderie, collaboration, and I love that about Far-Flung. I love being a part of Far-Flung, and any organization where you feel like you can bring your gifts and it's not being compared to somebody else's, or it's not competing with somebody else, but it's adding to the whole project. But I love that. I love that about this process, this songwriting process. I never feel like I'm competing with either of you or anybody else, or it's a team, which has been awesome.
I'm gonna ask Jeremy to speak kind of like to collaboration, the process, the album, culture, and you work with other artists too. Before that, we do have a word from our sponsor,
Oh, this
and
is
it
the
needs to
slang.
be read. I think
I'm
and
being
Jeremy's
handed.
gonna just read this
So
word
you
from our
want me to set
sponsor,
it up so they know?
and then we're right back
Okay,
together
so
after.
apparently I have a word from our sponsor, and I've been handed a piece of paper
Uh-huh.
here, so I don't know what I'm about to say. Disclaimer. Here we go. The Far-Flung Tin Can podcast is brought to you by Island Floats, the most delicioso beverage you've ever put your lips to. I would have worded that differently. At 12,500 feet in elevation lies Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake on Earth, and only there. Oh, there we are. And there, comma, and only there, comma, is what it should be. Can you find the best malts and shakes man has ever crafted? But you don't have to travel to Peru to enjoy this sweet goodness anymore. Islandfloats.co. There's no M? Okay. I just want to make sure it's not a typo. Has the entire menu, and get this, free delivery. What? That's right. It's $0.00 for delivery, and you can feel like you are sitting beachside with your drink and umbrella in hand. They really are incredible milkshakes, right, Tobin?
Yes.
That was
I've never had one.
in parentheses. In parentheses, it said, "Wait for Tobin's awkward response." So yeah, whoever wrote this nailed
Always.
it. To get your island float, visit islandfloats.co. And remember, all orders of $100 or more come with a free Island Floats t-shirt. So visit islandfloats.co today.
Big thanks from our sponsors. So yeah, go check them out.
Good. It's a real website.
It's a real website.
It's a real thing.
Collaboration and
So back to that.
you work with a bunch of artists, bunch of different artists on different kind of projects. You're not always producing. Sometimes you're doing other things. This album and kind of the collaborative culture of Far-Flung and go.
Yeah, collaboration can be very hard because of schedules and children and everything.
He looked at you on that.
One thing that was different about this album is me being in Tennessee, which has never been a thing. Me being in the office here, so it was a lot easier for people to just pop in, and it was also a lot easier. Any collaboration we've done in the past has been over a weekend at a retreat, and then like
Mhm.
over a few days here, and then
Mhm.
boom.
Mhm.
And this was a little bit easier in the sense that you could have this kind of ongoing collaboration, have people come in one day, come back, record, listen, you could work like that. So a lot of people contributed to the album, and we'll mention those people before the podcast is over. I think I could do most of it in my head, but um yeah, this it was very cool this time because most of the time songs for Farflung had been written kind of in isolation.
Mhm.
So if you wrote a song, you wrote the song
Mhm.
and then brought it and everybody learned it and sung it.
Yeah, like the
This one
day
was a
of.
little different because we were there. Yeah, like the day of.
Like, we'd be singing it live and be like, "Hey, everybody, learn this real quick."
Exactly. Um, so this was a little different because it was like, hey, I have, you didn't have a bridge for that song initially.
Mhm.
So I got to kind of produce, and then you got to kind of feed off that.
Mhm.
And, what could we go this direction? You sent me a memo and I was like, yeah, we could. And then I was hearing this and sent it back. We've
Mhm.
never been able to do that before.
Yeah.
It's always been like, here it is, let's do it
Yeah.
now.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in the same thing, like with the dark, you had an idea on the
Mhm.
dark, you started playing it, and I was like, yep, I can hear this happen and hear this. You didn't have a bridge on that.
Nope.
I collaborated with you on the
Yeah.
bridge. Like, so that's what was different this time. And um, like the dark, such a great song. It comes to the table, and then you're like, I ain't got no bridge. And then I have an idea for a bridge, and then you have two people kind of like offering their best and feeding off
Yeah.
each other's ideas, and it just has a way of really kind of lifting the creative process, or your end product. And that's like what you find like working with people. It's insane how many collaborators some artists work with, and
Mm.
you may have like three guys doing programming drums, because one guy just kills a snare sound, like
Mm.
it's just wild uh how that collaboration works at a high level. And being able to do that on this project, I think it really paid dividends, for what we ended up with. And it was just a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun. And another example, feels like heaven. uh they recorded the demo of Zeke's song, and there was like, well, we still need a bridge. And I was like, and we still need lyrics for the chorus. And I was just like, no. Sometimes that's collaboration. Sometimes it's just like, no, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good the way it is. You're like, well, I don't know. Like, we can't just sing feels like heaven and hold it out. I was like, yeah, you can. That's what you did on the demo, and it was great. He was like,
Yeah.
it's not gonna get old. I was like, no. And then they had this little part that he ad-libbed, like, it's so much better.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, that's the bridge. And he
Yeah.
was like, I was kind of thinking that, but he was kind of like insecure about that idea. I was like, no, that's it. And
Yeah.
it's simple, and so that was like another example of how that collaboration went for the album. It's just, again, being able to bounce those things back and forth, produce half of it, send it, come up with the bridge, change this. How would
Mhm.
that flow? Oh, now we got this song. So could we add something like this?
You
And
know.
then there's the far-flung type collaboration where Brother Peter in Mozambique, when you guys went to Africa, put
Mhm.
some headphones on with some random beat off YouTube, and we're like, just freestyle a bunch of stuff. And then you brought that audio file back, and then we did what came up to be O Camino, and which is awesome. And
Mhm.
then recorded the village dancing and did like the music video. So it's like that was a different form of collaboration because you're like sing over some random music, and then a guy back in the States is gonna produce a song around whatever it is that you do.
And
Wow.
we don't know
So
what
I
any
didn't
of your
know.
words mean.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that that's how that went down.
yeah. So they brought that back. I just dropped it on the grid in the software and
Wow.
started producing around. Picked some things out that I liked, and was like, okay, well, this will be the hook. Whatever he's saying will be the hook here. And
And then they did a dance to that.
well, they did a dance to just the YouTube beat that he like freestyled to,
Oh, wow.
and this, so I had to make, of course, like the same tempo and
Yeah.
feel, and that
Well,
was
that's cool.
intimidating because I've never recorded anything like that.
Uh-huh.
So you kind of feel like a bring back like a high school word. You kind of feel like a poser, trying to like.
So the cool thing about this album is that I keep texting Brian because my kids love it. Like every time we get in the car, they're like, "Daddy, can we listen to Far Flung?" And my kids are 10 and under, and all of them are just into it. They love the dark. They love all of Brian's
So,
songs.
set is nailing.
And then they love O Camino. That they don't know what's being said, but they're like jamming out to it in the
Yeah.
car. And I think that's the cool thing about this Far Flung album is it is generational and I told JoJo this because it's like something about we're trying to be the Christian parents, like let's put on worship in the car and our kids will be like staring out the window, but you put on something like this and they're engaged. They're singing the songs like your song, All You Ever Wanted Was My Heart. Like it's got all these raps and Zion knows every word. And now I say now I'm here for it in all every day. But I'm here for it. Like that's my new catchphrase. But like my kids know every word and like what a powerful like message, like all you ever wanted was my heart. And my kids are like saying that, and it's such a good song. And I don't know, I just love that my kids are jamming out to these anthems.
Yeah, I wonder, and I'm formulating a thought like live, right? So I don't want to like claim this as like principle or like stern belief of mine, but like there's you could get into the purpose of worship music and all of that stuff, and we will just not get into that. So if I make blanket statements, just it's on the listener to provide all of the context and details. But you were talking about like putting the music on and your kids kind of just staring out the window. And there's like such a focus, rightly so, on worship music being directed straight to God,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like we talk about sometimes the difference between like the worship and the performance, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
we look at it as in like those are two different directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
That when you're worshiping, it's just you and God, everything, and we write like that. And worship music is like me and you, me and you. And then if you're performing, then all of a sudden it's just you and the audience, you and the audience, you and the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I'm wondering, as you're
Yeah.
talking, like, is there a way to like connect with both God and people at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's why, like, when you listen to people, like people who are purely worshiping, but doing it so well that they connect with you,
Mm-hmm.
like I think of somebody like with the voice of like Carrie Job or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she could just be worshiping 100%, but her performance, quote unquote, is so good that you connect with the performance as well. And then now there's this like crazy thing happening where this person is blowing your mind, but it's being used to glorify God, and she's connecting you in some way to this emotion that you can connect with God. And I feel like maybe maybe a song like, or an album like Take a Risk, right, which is being used to glorify God and has all of those elements, but also just connects to the heart of people and
Mm-hmm.
has like a rhythm to it
Mm-hmm.
that even a child would be like, "Hey, I want to get in this." You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I said that very well, but I think sometimes we're so concerned with just let me sing this great thing to God that we kind of alienate the listener
Mm-hmm.
as well. And I wonder if there's like a really cool balance that this album struck that's like, man, we can just like be free and use vernacular and be
Mm-hmm.
colloquial, all
Mm-hmm.
these words, and
Yeah.
like it can be very informal so that it's relatable to just the dude in the coffee shop, but also it's edifying and glorifying God at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like pulling people in with that music, so that they can join you in that. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a real intentionality that happens when we're writing, and I look back at some of the songs that really move the needle in Far Flung, Come Lord Jesus, and they're very singable.
Mm-hmm.
And we do, as leaders, we want to be singable. When we preach a sermon, we want points that are easily remembered. So we try to work hard to do that. But then there's sometimes like to like to our fault, we tried so hard to be singable,
Mm,
to be something that's very easily remembered, that we became just monotonous.
mm,
Where when it's like all you ever wanted was my heart, to this rhythm, to this, and yet maybe it's not singable in the same corporate way that reckless love is,
mhm.
but like, okay.
Yeah.
And I love that about this album, that there is this part of it that it is still worship, it is still this, but we kind of like, so let's not worry about the things we normally worry about,
Mhm.
right? Let's just create some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put some stuff together. Um and that's kind of how this happened. This album, I'm thinking through like Take a Risk, that song, even like the idea of that song is doesn't necessarily fit in what you normally would think of the third worship song of a Sunday morning
You're
service
right.
that is supposed to like take us in.
Right, yeah.
But it kind of came from you in your car, right? Is that
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
you're driving in your car and you're like, all right, Lord,
Mhm.
like I'm here.
Yeah. When I wrote that song, I was just driving. It actually came from a pretty challenging place and a pretty challenging prayer. I was just driving home, and do you ever just feel like, Lord, don't look past me. Like, don't choose somebody else over me. Like, I'm here too. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like so many times we put it on the perspective of like, I need to take a risk on God. But I just started to pray this prayer that was like, God, I know I may not have money and like all of these skills, and I may not look like this, but if you would just take a risk on me, like that was the prayer. Like, God, would you ever consider putting me there? Would you ever consider taking that risk on me? And so that's where that song came from. And then who I was so, it came from a really deep place. So I
Yeah.
was wanting
Yeah.
to write that almost monotonous worship song, like, oh Lord, take a
And I
risk
love
on
those
me,
songs. So disclaimer to all the people.
Yeah. We're all worship leaders. So like we live there. But so then to release it in a fresh way, like it is a deep prayer, but to release it in a fun way, like maybe some high school kid could listen to that and maybe not be in that headspace, but then start to think about the words, and the words are like, I may not have the answers or meet all of the standards, but I'm available. Take a risk on me, God. Here I am. So that's kind of where that,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because, like, we're talking about how the album really turned out to be whatever, however you want to say it, colloquial. We used a lot of vernacular. It was very informal, all of those things. And I said earlier that it was an honest expression. Like, it was true, right? It was true to the moment when you wrote it. Like for a song like All You Ever Wanted, that song is true to me, right? It started just as a song for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have to try to work it into a worship set. I didn't have to try to work it into an album, because
Yeah.
if I would have done so, I probably wouldn't be 2 rap verses in it, right? It probably wouldn't. There's certain things that I said, a lot of things I said that I just wouldn't say. But yet those are the things that, like, from my heart, those are the things that
Mm.
I said,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting because back to the worship thing, like, spirit and in truth, right? So like, it may not sound like a worship song, right? So what we're used to, but that song is true
Mm.
in every sense of the word,
Mm-hmm.
because it's unfiltered. It's literally just what I felt. I said what I felt, and I said it how I wanted to say it. You know what I mean? And it's like, in a sense, I look at that and I go, man, like, I wonder if that resonates with the Father
Mm.
more than some other things maybe I've done in the past, where it's like, here's how I feel and what I want to say, but let me say it like how I think everybody else thinks I should say it. And let me say it in a way that fits into this mold. It's like maybe a little less true. And if I
Mm.
want to worship in
Yeah.
spirit and in truth, it's like, man, like there's part of me that's like, if I start thinking about it, I'm like, I want, maybe I don't want to rap like that on it. Let me
Mm.
change it. But then it's like, man, that's just what I did.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, and this. It's like, no, like at the end of it, this is how I'm feeling. If it ain't your kingdom, I'm not building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it
Yeah.
ain't your word, I won't listen. And if it ain't your love, I ain't tripping.
I ain't
Like,
tripping.
and it's just like it's just like a weird thing to like
Yeah.
put it, but
Yeah.
it was just like the truest expression.
Yeah.
This is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like what happened on the album with a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
like um, thinking back over the last year, it's like all of these songs, I can place the dark, like those lyrics you wrote, I can place that in your testimony in certain places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, you being in the car
Mm.
and me writing that song in this office over here last year, just like that's it.
Mm.
Like I'm done. If this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Like I'm a son and nobody's pulling me out of that,
Yeah.
And it's so we all have these like moments in our testimony. And the giver is another example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like being at a place in my life where all I was doing was just asking God for things, to do things,
Mm-hmm.
out of desperation, like, God, please do this, give us that, do this. We need a house, we need this, we need to going through a season, and then all of a sudden stopping one day. You're still in the middle of that and
Mm-hmm.
going, you know what? You've already given me like a bunch of stuff.
Wow.
Probably what I need is just like you.
Yeah.
So like you've given me signs and
great.
wonders. I've seen what you can do. Now I just want the giver.
Mm.
And just literally getting to a point where you're just like, all right, forget it. Like I give it. And that was like a huge part of that testimony. And again, like it's so funny, like such it turns out to be such a happy song, And like every day you're getting sweeter and your love is getting deeper, sweeter and sweeter, better and better. And now it's just like I was in the pits, I was just but
Uh,
it was still like that forcing that no. Like I'm gonna fight back against this, and like
yeah.
I'm gonna try to recognize really, really what the testimony is like that I'm going through right now. Yeah, like there's things that uh, are not going really great, but man, like, I just want to stop worrying about those things.
Yeah.
And if I think about it, like you're still, I mean, still every day. It's like I do find you get better, you get sweeter,
Yeah.
Um, so it was like a really cool thing just to see and to be here and to know more about people's lives too. And then to hear the songs that were coming out of that and going, yeah, like I get it.
Mm.
I get where you're coming from. I get it, and being able to resonate that way too was really, really nice.
I feel like creatively, when you were talking earlier about, pulling songs down out of the atmosphere and like you find that song, like and as songwriters, there are times when like that just happens, and like there are times when you labor over a song, but there are a lot of times when it's like you almost stumble upon a thought, and you like your brain doesn't keep up with the pen because the words are just coming out. I don't know if it's a Holy Spirit thing where it just comes out of nowhere. It comes from your gut, from your mind, and you don't really know, but and they have those songs to me have this prophetic nature to it. And what I've seen, like, you're talking about that song and they're connected to your testimony, and you write from this place, that you may not even be feeling, and you're like, where's this song coming from? And it's not even really how I feel right now. Like, I'm in the pits, but I'm writing sweeter and sweeter and better and better. It's almost like you're pulling this song. And I don't know about you guys, but I've written songs and I'll write the whole song in like 5 minutes, and it's just a download. And you're pulling it from the atmosphere and you've stumbled upon it. You write the whole thing. You're looking over the lines and you're saying, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
You're like, I I don't fully even comprehend this song and the depth of it, and what just I wrote on paper. I don't get it. 6 months later, you release the song. You come back to the song a year later.
Right.
You look over your life since you've released that song, and you look line by line and you go, And I feel the Holy Spirit. But, like, you look line by line and you say, "That's what that meant. That's what that meant. That happened, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened." And it's almost like these songs we're pulling from the atmosphere have these prophetic tones, these prophetic, um, this prophetic power really we're speaking into the season to come. And we don't as creatives always even know what. I have a good example. So on Sundays, we have artists that paint on, and so they just tap in and say, "Lord, what do you want me to paint today?" And so this girl starts painting a picture of a baby in a womb. So nobody can see the painting because she's got her back to the audience. She's just painting. Well, our pastor gets up and begins to declare and prophesy over the Lord filling people's wombs and filling a woman's womb and just declarations of faith. The artist didn't know at the beginning, and our pastor didn't know it wasn't this thing, but it was like she caught it, like you said, caught it from the atmosphere, began to put it down as a creative. And she didn't know it was going to be prophetic in the moment to release something over the people in that room. And as creatives, I think that's what we do. We tap into that
Right.
what God is saying and doing, and we don't understand why am I painting a baby in a womb? I don't know, but then it's all revealed, and it's like this is what that means, and this is why you released that, and this is why I gave you that creative inspiration.
Yeah.
Um, you
So,
know,
such a cool way. I mean, to look at that. I mean, God can, he could do whatever he wants, but he chooses to use us.
mm,
And if you look at it that way as creatives, it's like, man, like well, we can talk about it like that. Like, then there's just something that as a creative or as a prophet or as whatever, just a mouthpiece for God or,
mm,
that you can tap into. And like that day, he's like, okay, the womb, right?
yeah,
Filling the wombs. And it's like, God, so he's speaking to Pastor Kevin.
mm,
And this person that's painting is like they tap into that thing too. And like, and then as creatives, as pastors, prophets, whatever, like to bring forth the thing that God is speaking,
mm,
right?
mhm,
To in whatever medium you're using, like to bring that thing out from just the abstract or the spiritual, to bring it out and put it tangibly into the world. Like
yes,
it's literally like the manifestation of God's thoughts and
yes,
God's desire in his heart. And it's like just talking about that painter, like she literally gave a physical picture to the thing that God wanted to speak.
yes,
Like this is what's on God's mind right now.
yeah.
Like that's crazy.
I would like if I could say something to people maybe listening. It's like speaking to creatives, like can be so introspective and vulnerable at times when you are releasing something that is creative. Sometimes we hold back. And I've seen
Yeah.
that in my life where like I have been given something. I've been given a song, I've been given an idea, but I'm afraid to present it. I'm afraid to put it on a platform. I'm afraid to share it. And so I hold back. But the thing that I've learned is like the girl painting the picture, she could be saying, I don't know why I'm doing this. She doesn't know that God's about to line it up and make it all clear and plain. And I think just as an encouragement to creatives, is like, don't be afraid to release what God has given you, like the songs, the paintings, the scripts, the photography, the videos, the movies, whatever it is that God is, the systems, the structure, the coding, whatever you're doing, is that God may be giving you ideas, and we sometimes wait for it all, like the stars to align before we just release something. But if you're just faithful to release what God has given you, pull it down out of the atmosphere, pull it down out of that heavenly realm, and just put it on paper, put it down and put it out. And I just feel like God will breathe on it, God will move on it, and He'll make it clear and plain. And to not feel so afraid, just conquer that spirit of fear and put out what God has given you.
Sometimes I think we so desperately want to bring something that is complete,
Mm, yeah.
right? Like we want to bring something, and this is the thing, and it's all dressed nice, and it's together, and it's tied up nice, and it being complete is a statement about me.
Mm,
I who am complete and together and tied up really nice and bringing this thing. Even if it's a song from a really dark place, I'm bringing this because I'm out of that dark place now. Now I'm great and I'm awesome. And look at what I came out of.
Wow.
When I think this has been special for me too, because by and large, we didn't bring something that was complete. Most of us, when we got here, weren't complete.
Mm,
We put the album together, we weren't complete. Some of us don't even feel complete now.
yeah.
And if we're honest, we're still living out some of the songs and some of the choruses. And I think sometimes the Lord wants us to bring what is incomplete.
Yeah.
Because if it's complete, there's no room for him.
Yeah.
So a song, an album, a painting, we forget that we've made our relationship with God so individual that we forget that when they worshiped, it was like this offering that someone made on behalf of God's people.
Mm.
This priestly lineage
Mm.
made an offering on behalf of the people.
Wow, that's good.
It wasn't, man, we all have this individual thing. And so sometimes there's a song, there's an album, there's this thing. And that's why a painter can get it, and a songwriter can get it, and a prophet and a priest and a preacher and everybody. Because as much as I think, yes, God wants to speak to you,
Mm.
in a deeper way, I think this God, this ancient God, this outside of time, wants to speak to his people.
That's so good.
And so he doesn't always want to speak in verse chorus. And he wants to speak those deep truths, those prayers from difficult places. My 11-year-old niece and her youth group were blaring The Dark.
Yeah.
That's so, like, I haven't seen the sun for days. That's so dark. Like it was like the season has not changed.
Mm.
I haven't seen the sun. I thought you were going to change everything. I thought you were going to take the clouds away. I'm holding on to every word you said.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember, what was the promise he said? I'm going back through my journal. Wait a minute. Did God ever promise me that he would? Is this ever going to let up? Is this ever going to be different? I'm hanging on to every word you said. And I'm learning what it means when you just tell me to just wait until the light comes.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm like, so the season didn't change. I just became okay where if I'm going to be in the dark, I'm just going to be in the dark. I'm going to stop being afraid of it. I'm going to stop being weary with it. Our kids are singing these songs.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, probably the 11-year-olds at this point in our lives know what's cool more than we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're not far from asking your kids before you leave the house if this is, your kids are a little younger. So like you got a little bit of time.
Right now, I'm cool. To them,
Not long,
that's gonna
bro.
switch.
It's not
It's
long.
gonna switch. I know.
Yeah. I want us, and our director Kyle really spoke into this in our lives just recently at our conference, but like what our end goal is. And our end goal is not accomplishment, and we're not to let insecurities define our end goal.
That's so good.
Right. So like we're gonna write more music.
Yeah.
We're gonna write more, and we're gonna raise up other people who write music, and they're gonna put a killer song on an album, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, man, that is such an expression of all of us.
Yeah. And that's the power of collaboration when you were talking about Zeke, when he sent his song and he was like, we need to add this and we need to do this. And he collaborated with you. And we come from that. As creatives, we have a level of insecurity because we're putting out something that is so reflective of our inner person sometimes.
Mm.
And so we come and we bring it to the table and we're like, is this good enough or is this right? And it's so powerful to have collaboration because you have somebody stepping in and saying, no, it doesn't need any more. It's good as what it is. And the way you did it and what God gave you is good, and then you bring it and the team collaborates on it. And that's the power of collaboration. And we can't let our insecurities keep us from sharing it and bring it to the table.
Do you feel safe bringing an idea to Far-Flung? Like, do you feel safe, like with Jeremy? Do you still feel like I need to run this by JoJo first? I need to do you feel like I can send a voice memo. Voice cracks. It's off key. I don't care. I'm just gonna send it.
So the funny thing was, I think I sent you guys and Kyle 2 voice memos. One was Take a Risk and one was another song, mountain song, I think. Anyway, but I sent this song, and Take a Risk for me was such a different vibe than anything I've ever done. And so I was like, I don't even know if this makes sense. And I've got a baby in my arm. I'm singing it a cappella, and I sent you 2 songs. Nobody ever responded to me.
I did. It was like 2 weeks later, right?
It was like okay. No one ever responded to me until you made the whole track. You created the whole track.
It was just an example of like, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna text him back. And instead, I just produced the whole song, and he never even knew. So you're like sitting over there thinking, "Well, that was a dud, I guess." Meanwhile, I'm over here for days working on it.
So then, I don't know if it was you or Kyle sends me the track. Like it's
was
like
me
all done
because I remember sending it, and then you responded like, "Oh, I didn't even think you guys listened. Like nobody said anything yet."
Like, nobody even responded. Like no thumbs up or thumbs down or anything. I was like, well, those must have been trash. But it was so. Then you come back with the whole thing. But no, I didn't. I don't feel that. I don't feel that with this team. I feel like, here, I put it out there. Maybe it's for this project, maybe it's not, and
Yeah.
sometimes what I've seen is like sometimes you put it out there and it may be another project down the road, or,
Right.
so it's not always that. And then sometimes it's just not the song.
Yeah,
And that's okay.
And yeah, right. And understanding, like in collaboration, like the whole point of even sending a song, like if anybody sent a song for that album, the whole point is the album.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you as a songwriter. It's not the song you did. It's not the demo. How much quality is in the demo, or like how polished is the idea. It's none of that.
Yeah.
Like it's just simply like, wait, that works, or I don't think it's gonna fit. And we had, you take somebody who probably wouldn't even consider themselves a songwriter, who hasn't put a lot of things out or whatever. And we keep referencing Zeke, right? Zeke is an amazing designer. Now he's a songwriter.
Yeah.
He wrote "Coming to the Light,"
Yeah.
right?
Which
oh
was
my
fire.
goodness!
Yeah.
It was
So he
good.
is a songwriter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but he's a designer, like
Yeah,
mainly,
that's his profession.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
like so. So he's like a professional designer that's writing songs, whereas we also have people in Far-Flung that are professional songwriters and performers,
Yeah.
and they're people that sent songs to get on this album, and those songs didn't get put on the album, but his did,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's not as like, well, I mean, the other guy's not going, well, yes, I'm not a songwriter. No, it's just like, hey, this song might work, it might not. Doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah.
It might work on the next one. It might work on it, but just understanding that too, like, and this is all the Far-Flung people out there, when we're messaging and I'm like, shoot us ideas for this next album.
Yeah.
Like, man, like, I worked with an artist one time and I busted my tail to produce, he made a comment, was like, man, I might want to do that song with you. And I was like, oh, snap. Like, here it is. Busted my tail for like 3 days making this demo, produced this beat. I mean, polished, mixed, got it mastered just to send the beat. So I'm like, I'm not taking any chances. This is like 3.5 minutes long of just pure production genius to me. Like 100% of my effort and ability is in this. He comes back with, literally, I put a little break, like a little Latin break in the beat just to make it interesting about halfway through. And it was like 3 kind of like jazzy chords and like some percussion, and it dropped back into the beat. I worked for days. When I say days, this is weeks in the making, but like really days polishing and get this thing mastered, send it to him, and he comes back with, man, basically, those 2 seconds right in the middle are really good. And he was like, can I just get that? And I was like, yes. And it's like, like you work so hard on that whole thing, but there was a little piece in there that really inspired him, that caught
Mm,
him, and that's what he focused on. So like you walk away from that and you're not like, oh well, I'm just a terrible producer and
mm,
I'm just missing chances and I'm just no, you just walk away. It's like, man, it didn't connect.
mhm.
Didn't connect. I don't know what he wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know what I wanted. I just did something, thought it was good. You know what I mean? So like just kind of removing yourself and then understanding that sometimes it will be like you may have a whole thing you think is polished. And man, there may be that one line in it that's like, stop.
Yeah. It's that.
Okay. Everything else, you don't say it like this when you collaborate. Everything else, forget it. That line, let's make something out
Yeah,
of it.
that's the
And
one.
sometimes that's all you get.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's like, it's kind of like in the process of manufacturing something. Like, you bring in all of these different ingredients, so you bring in all of these different things, then you have a lot of byproduct left over just to get the one thing that you wanted.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like dairy. I don't know a ton about dairy, but if you make butter, you got buttermilk left over,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, we bring this milk to the table and we're like, hey, how's this milk? You shake it up for a while and you're like, there it is. There's the butter. Now, don't throw that other buttermilk away. We could probably use that too. But right now, we're focused on this butter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, what's really valuable in that process of creating and manufacturing, like you start with 5 pounds of something and you
Yeah.
end up with like an ounce. And it's
Yeah.
like that, you take that ounce then, and that's the really valuable thing you build off of.
Yeah.
So just understanding just creatively in the collaborative process that when you're going to have like, you did that with something I said, like you took that kingdom thing. This is
Yeah.
how I'm feeling. If it
And
ain't,
we haven't even like
yeah, we haven't even
ironed
hashed it out,
but
but
I
you were
walked
like,
in, I was like, we're gonna write a
you were
whole
like
song on
those
this whole
lines,
thing.
those 2-3 that's a song.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
song. Now I didn't look at that and go, oh, he just hated everything else.
Yeah.
It's just understanding, well, that connected, right? Out of
Yeah.
that whole process, that connected, and
That
he
one thing.
sees potential in that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you come to the table with a lot, and you don't the value is found out
Where's
of
the
it. It's
butter?
like sifting, yeah, right? Sifting, right? You're like, here's a bunch of junk I just pulled out of the creek, and it's like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
There's the good stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not
Mhm.
being offended that
Yeah.
the other stuff, wasn't used. And sometimes you just come to the table with the little gold nugget.
Yeah.
That's all you got. But a lot of times, like you said, we want to be complete. So you're like, well,
Mm.
I mean, I feel like there's a good idea. So sometimes it's selfish. Like, well, I want to be the one to figure this idea out. I
Mhm.
don't want to have to say somebody else did it,
Yeah.
And then other times there's just that desire just to complete a thing, and
Yeah.
because I get that sometimes. Sometimes I get stubborn. Like I just want to win in the process.
Yeah.
And if I start branching out, then I don't get the satisfaction of like beating that song into submission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that was a lot.
I heard a person the other day talking about their metric of success, their metric for success, and they said they're with their team, and they said this. They said, "Did we love well? Did we serve well?
Mm.
Did we glorify God?
Mm. Mhm.
Full stop. That's it. Did we love well? Did we serve well? Did we glorify God?" Now that doesn't really apply to the album, but I think our metric of success, like for an album, for this is it true?
Mm.
Is it true?
Mhm.
Did it come from spirit?
Mhm.
Right? Like, is this just something that I orchestrated on paper because I thought, okay, well, Reckless Love got this much and Come Lord Jesus got this much, so we'll formulaically
Mhm.
do this. And that really didn't come from our spirit.
Mm.
For me, for the things I want to be involved in with Far-Flung, with songwriting, I want it to come from that place that is the relationship with the Lord, that
Mhm.
spirit. And I want it to be true. Was it true? Yes.
Mhm.
Was it spirit? Was it spirit and truth? Yes.
Mhm.
Sweet. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Then, does it sound good? Is it sonic? Is all that stuff? We're gonna leave all that to Caruthers. Is it the right sound for the right thing?
Yeah.
Question now, as we kind of like wrap it up, will there be another Far-Flung pop album? If that is that right? Is it pop? Is it
Yeah, I
pop
mean,
album?
we'll call it that for
Is it? Will there
in
be another?
context. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I was thinking about it earlier when somebody was talking. We were talking about doing things out of necessity or just out of your heart or whatever. And I don't know. People have asked me, like, "All right, is this our new thing?" Like, I
Mm.
mean, I don't know.
Mm.
Like, if their songs start popping up, yeah. But again, I don't feel the urge to be like, okay, Tobin,
Mhm.
you better
Write a pop song.
let's get them pop songs going. You know,
Mhm.
okay. And I think that was a lesson that we learned with this album too. Even the album we want to record in Japan. It's like I could say, okay, everybody, we're doing an album in Japan, but this one's gonna be like the old stuff. So everybody just write. And I'm trying not to do that
Mm.
because I just want to say, hey, just write.
Just write. Be
What are
creative.
you feeling like as a son? Like, what do you need to say
Yeah.
that you want your father to hear, and that you don't mind everybody else hearing too?
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of like where I'm at now. Is like, man, and we got some songs in the works that me and Jansen one night were messing around after a recording, and we got this song called "Come On Over," and it's like literally we're just telling God like, "Come on, man."
Yeah.
Like we're chilling. Come on. Like again, it's very, very like informal.
Uh-huh.
But man, it's just that's what we thought.
Yeah.
Me and Jansen had so many good conversations recently just about that. Like
Yeah.
just being present, just sit. Like if you just go home and sit at the table, an empty table, and
good.
just tell God, like, hey, come sit down.
That's good.
And like some amazing things can happen in those moments at the table on a park bench, on a picnic table out here that I've experienced multiple times where it's just like I felt like God just moseyed on over and sat down,
Yeah.
So like I don't know. It's just right now we're
Mm.
really in this cool groove where it's just like anything goes. Might not make it anywhere, but just man, everybody just come to the table with stuff and let's be true. Let's be true to what we're feeling and to ourselves. Like I don't gotta be like Chris Brown at Elevation.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't have to be Gunger or Crowder or
Yeah.
I don't have to, dude, I'm Jeremy.
Mhm.
And it's like you feel so much pressure to like try to morph into these people.
Mhm.
And then man, when you just have a moment like this last album where you're just like, hey, whatever. Like for instance, the bridge on Take a Risk. I thought it was like so unique. Like it's so catchy. I would never write that.
Mhm.
What waits for us
Mhm.
beyond was da 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 da.
Mm.
And like I remember you bringing it, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't like greatest bridge ever, let's record it, right? But I say that to say when I think about that song now, I think about the bridge.
Mhm.
And it was, and I remember you sending me that bridge, and you were very insecure about it. You like, cause you buffered. There's like a minute
you
of
always
like,
do your
I don't know if this is
disclaimer.
gonna work. This isn't really polished. This might not be it. It's just an idea. Let me know what you think. I won't be offended if we don't. So there's like all of
That's
that.
my conversation.
Yeah, there's all of that
constant.
buffered up front, and then I heard it, and I was like, yeah, no, that worked. I think that works in the song.
Yeah.
And then coming in, and then just going, you know what, like. Jeremy, Zeke, Brian, everybody else that wrote on the album.
Mhm.
That's what you're expressing. Then let's lean into it.
Yeah.
Let's not morph it or change it into something else. Let's not try to make it into something else more familiar or
Mhm.
appropriate. Let's just lean into it. So you're gonna sing that bridge. I'm gonna just bam bam
Yeah.
bam bam
Yeah.
bam bam. I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go there. If we're gonna go there, let's go 100%.
Yeah.
And I think moving forward with the Japan album, with the next studio album, whatever, like I'm excited because I don't know. I
Mm.
don't know what the next album is gonna sound like. I'm just excited to see what people and hopefully people are like, all right, I gotta write songs like Take a Risk, because now
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
the temptation.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll sound a little different. I wouldn't be surprised because we had so much fun
Mhm.
making Take a Risk. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up doing it again,
Mhm.
just because everybody like, we've played producing a lot of things, and people walking in the room and they're like, yeah, this is good.
Mhm.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh wow, this is good.
Yeah.
This album was like, what is this? It was like, yeah, right. And then people are just in my knocking stuff over, and I'm like, all right, well, relax. Like, but
Yeah.
it was like really fun to get those reactions. And like you said, now, like, I don't have to put on like baby bop YouTube songs all day at my
Yeah.
house. I can put the dark on.
Yeah.
You know, my kids are headbanging. And
Yeah.
my 9-month-old son is like pulling
Yeah.
up on the couch and
Miles is
bobbing around, and that album pretty much can kind of play through, and it's like
Yeah.
everything's got
Hits.
like a
Yeah.
good place to it, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up, because it's been fun too to discover that maybe not all of them, but a lot of them can translate into a worship service, because that was a
Mhm.
big question.
yeah,
But over M&A and then Lead Chapel, it was like, wow, this works.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like we can sing the dark and still worship
Yeah.
in the same
Mhm.
venue in the same time. Like,
Yeah.
so that's been really, because that was
This
probably my big insecurity coming off the album, was like, is this just gonna live online and
Because we
just
are a
right?
worship
Is it
crew
just
too.
gonna live online and we'll just be like, yeah, that's a thing we did one time. You know what I mean? Like, but it hasn't turned out to be that,
this
which
old
is cool.
cat from Chicago comes up to Ashley after the chapel. He had dropped his kid off in college, but he was in chapel the day that JoJo did The Giver, and he comes up to Ashley after the thing. He was like, "Y'all playing that's my sound.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like y'all were putting some of my sound in that. That was like what I grew up with." And he was like, "I had a band back in the day called Tin Can,
No way.
spelled like TYN, right? Like, and I guess it was somebody's name or a TYN, Tin Can."
No way.
And
That's
like I
weird.
heard that bass line and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" They're playing like my,
It has
and then
like a funk groove to it.
yeah, this funky thing, and then but everybody in the room still is like with it. I like that this album came from a time when most of us just wanted to get in our car and drive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we wanted. That's what we needed. I
Mhm.
just want to go. I just want to take a drive. I just want to turn something on my drive home, and I don't want to talk. I don't want to be on the phone. I just want something I can drive to. I think some of the albums that we're going to do, they're going to come from a place where it's time to worship.
Yeah.
I even think
Mhm.
as we come into Japan and we're going to that, I think, okay, when I sit in the suicide forest,
Mm.
what do I want to sing?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to sing?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to sing about? If I get 5 minutes to worship in that place, I want to worship. At that point, I won't write the dark because I don't want to take a drive. I won't write. That's the way I'm coming at some of those things. When I get there, when I get in a little house church with some people in Japan, what will we want? What will I want to sing?
Yeah.
What will I want? So when it comes time to like, hey, it's time we're ready to worship, I think those songs come.
Yeah.
And when you're in a season where like, man, I need something I can play with my kids that
Mhm.
feels good. That like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I sent it to one of my friends and he was like, "That's a bop." Yeah.
I think the cool thing too about the Take a Risk album is every song, even though there's a vein and even though there's like a vibe to the whole album, every song has its own feeling. And
Sure.
they're all connected, but at the same time, they're all unique from each other.
Mhm.
And I think the cool thing about that album is I feel like it broke something for us as writers and creators, like to fit a box or to fit a standard or to. So I think it is going to translate, even like when Brian is saying we're going to write from a worship place, like it's time to worship. But I think this album helped us break something
Yeah.
so that when we come to those moments, we are still not in a box
Right.
and we can say what we want to say and say what we need to say and not feel like, oh, it has to sound like Elevation, or it has to sound like Bethel, or it has to have this worship thing, and it has to be verse chorus. I feel like it helped us break that creatively, and now we can be a little more honest and expressive,
Yeah.
and not every song has to, even for the Japan album, not every song has to feel like, maybe there is a bop on there, maybe there is like a pop tune on there that we sing in the maybe we go J-pop. I don't know. And like, but we could do it, and it's still worship. I don't know,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Well, I'm hoping that, like what you said earlier, like still COVID stuff, we're still getting shut down. We're still like, yeah, it seems like it's been a year and a half, 2 years of just like quarantine, and even if you are out, should you be, and should you be wearing a mask, and that person coughed and I'm coughing, and it's like live gatherings are back, but then you got people starting tours and then canceling them. And now there's a new strand, and now there's and it's like I listen to this album, and it's like you're talking about that prophetic thing. It's like, man, hopefully this album has been like a lot of those songs you were talking about, and a lot of songs
Mm,
for me,
mm,
like "Rest My Soul."
mm-hmm,
Right, I wrote a
Yeah.
song in the depths of anxiety and depression,
mm.
and it took 5 years of me singing and other people hearing that song. So it's like, oh, I found that rest,
Yeah.
right? And I'm
Yeah.
not there anymore. And it's like, man, hopefully this album, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is our prayer, like as
Mm.
Far-Flung, like that this album is the prophetic sound
Yeah.
of a season that's coming.
Like, what if we get to say in 5 years, the sweeter and sweeter and better happened?
Yeah.
Like
That
you may
feels
have,
like heaven
yeah, feels like
happen,
heaven. It
you know?
happened. Yeah,
Like I'm living in the light now.
it
That like
happened.
we're in globally we're kind of like in this like
We're
slump,
saying,
and I hate to even bring it up because
mm,
I just try to act like it's not happening,
mm,
just whatever. I'm
Yeah.
fine, everything's good. But no, like we are in this like that. This album, let me put it to you this way: this album, the sound of this album is not the soundtrack for the time that we're in.
wow.
There's a lot of people making soundtracks for the time that we're in.
Mm.
There's a lot of people doing uh, specials, quarantine specials, live in the living room,
Yeah, yeah,
like and we're just like making a thing. It's a music festival,
yeah.
right? And the sun's shining, everybody's packed in, and everybody's dancing, and everybody feels good, and they're living in the light now, and like
Yeah,
and I think hopefully that this album is the soundtrack of a season to come.
yeah, that's
you know
good.
and I think maybe that's why it resonates with people so much, is because people are like, hey, like uh,
Mm.
yeah, like I'm ready for this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready for this.
That's so good.
Yeah. Let's hit up all the people who are involved.
So
Let's kind of try to like.
let me go down the list real quick, and we'll just go down all 9 of the songs quickly.
Okay.
The Dark, obviously, Brian wrote. I collaborated a
Yep.
little bit on that. My buddy Josh George, aka Josh Shue, provided guitars on that song. Killed it, did it, and like sent him a request, sent it back in 2 hours, and it was like money, tone, everything was perfect. So thank you, Josh, for that. Take a Risk, Tobin and JoJo vocally on that. Tobin, you wrote that song. All You Ever Wanted, I wrote that song. Etienne came in, added his vocals on the bridge, and added his
I
Etienne
ain't
thing.
tripping. I ain't tripping.
Yeah, the only Etienne can do. Took the song to a whole nother level. Very appreciative of that. The Giver is a song that I wrote. JoJo was meant to sing that song, and then PJ, who
Mm-hmm.
came in with the
Yeah.
ad libs and the oh my
You know,
goodness,
he did when y'all did that live this last week. He slayed that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, it's another
He
one of those like
elevated that so much too.
it
Like
was one of those
just
songs like I wrote a good song, and then JoJo sang it, and I had to completely reproduce the song because it was like, wait, like she didn't fit my original production, but my original production should bow to what she did. Like we should, we're not making JoJo change anything. So completely forced me to change the entire sound of the song. And then when I finally got it, I think I did like 4 or 5 versions of that song.
Mhm.
Wow.
Finally got it. PJ came in. He was in here one day, and I was like, "Hey, why don't you do this?
Yeah.
Do this real quick. Why don't you?" Which turned out to be a great
Man, he killed
production
it.
choice because he killed that. That song, Nate Claggett played bass on. Nico Barboza played guitar. And I think that's it on that one. Earth and Sky, another song that I wrote a long time ago, repurposed it, reproduced it for this. Brooklyn, as soon as we thought we put that on there, it was just like, yeah, she's the one to sing that
He
song.
sounded great on it.
Did great on that.
Yeah.
Feels Like Heaven was a collaborative effort between Rob, Crystal Alley, Zeke, and Whitney Tucker. I guess we'd say it's Zeke's song, probably the best way to put it.
Gang vocals on
Production,
that is so great. Like all the like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, the people that did gang vocals, Ashley your wife Ashley
Oh
Lindsey,
yeah.
did a lot of gang
Yeah.
vocals on this album. Oh, who else did
Robin
gang
Crystal
vocals?
came over both
Robin
for
Crystal did some
stuff.
gang vocals.
And Huarbe, I thought he did some too.
Yeah, Warbay was here for some of that as well. Yeah, Z feels like heaven. I would say, if you want to be honest, like that's like a Rob production that Jeremy redid. Um, so yeah, he definitely, as far as the sound and the direction of that song, Rob and Zeke have to take the credit for that one. Never Stop Singing. Shout outs to Darlene Sheck. She, but that song came from a prayer night here.
Yeah.
And Mateo sung "Worthy Is the Lamb," and in the room, I remember
Yeah.
when he started singing that. Me and you looked at each other, and we're like, "This is it." Nothing else needs to be said or done. Like just this. This is like it was one of those shalom moments. Like that.
Yes,
That everything's right now.
Yeah.
Everything is as it should be.
Yeah.
And it impacted me so much. And I went in there to mix
So good.
for that night. And Rob Jansen was on keys. Rob was on acoustic. And I took that from that night and
So
just
good.
made that.
Rob was so great on acoustic on that.
I sent him a message after that day, and I was like, "Just you need to know that you're like acoustic playing is like next level." And he just, of course, responded like, "Haha, yeah, right." Like it was some garbage,
Yeah.
but like, no, dude. That night, Rob was dialed in on the acoustic, and then Mateo. I just every time I see him, I just want to ask him to sing that, but I don't because that would be weird. The Light. So Brian
Yeah.
wrote that. And that was to me, was one of the riskier ones. I was like, okay, are we really going to do this? Like, as far as the production
I
style.
remember going through the Rolodex of just like voice memos and songs, and I found that one, and I was like, yeah, maybe. And when we went in, we kind of cut it. You kind of cut it up. We cut it up a little bit. Had the music break, and then we stole Tobin's
Yes.
lines,
Which we
from
did give you
a van.
percentage on credits. We
Brian
gave
told me
you
that a few
points,
weeks ago.
writing points.
Yeah, we did.
But the drop on that song, though, I live for it.
Yeah, y'all sent me a text. I don't know if I
I'm like,
responded to that text. Or
it
not,
just
but-
feels so good.
Yeah, and then so yeah, that was Brian, and then we stole some stuff. I sprinkled a couple little ad lib lines on there, but that was a Brian song. And then O Camino, of course, Brother Peter in Mozambique just gave us a lot of good stuff.
LU on the dance video. I think LU is the one who like orchestrated all that, kind of choreographed it, and all those kids are a part of Celia's ministry there.
Yeah,
in
and-
Mozambique.
And then besides that, like if I forgot anybody, forgive me, but we also the contributions of people like Warbe and Chris Carneal and other people who just were a part of the album making process in one way or the other, whether that was in the mixing process or editing or if you really, really dug into every song, there's probably 3 or 4 more people on each song that contributed in some way. But it was just
Who did the album art?
that was Zeke. So I had an idea for the album artwork. And I was like, man, I just see like a guy standing on the edge or doing, like just something that gives the idea like taking risk. And I gave him a couple different ideas, and he ran with the one that I guess he saw the most potential. And yeah, it's
so
dope.
good.
Yeah, that's a lot of people's like first thing, like, oh, that's cool artwork.
Yeah.
I'm like, the music is good too, right? So yeah, and then Sterling Sound in Nashville. One of my boys there did Adam Grover mastered it and did a killer job. Yeah,
Got some music videos that we're in discussions on the
yeah.
works.
The Dark, we definitely gonna have a music video coming out.
Halftime at like a local football game, we're gonna get a drum line, do Take a Risk. And
Yeah.
we want Tobin to run across the field shirtless with
Oh my gosh.
with a painted thing on his chest.
Okay.
And the whole video is
I'm
going
here
to be
for it.
about, should I take a risk and run across this field shirtless? And then And then he does.
Yeah. He's not he's not feeling that, but I think that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's an hour and
Oh,
17 minutes.
Rob played some guitars on Earth and Sky too.
Oh, yeah.
And he played. I feel like I don't know. And yeah. I think that's it.
And we have live versions of which songs on YouTube right now? The Giver?
The Giver is just about to go live. We
Okay.
finished that yesterday, and that's actually the version Tori's leading at RTTN.
And she slayed it that night.
Yeah, she
Was
did.
it cool to just be in the audience and
You
stuff?
know, that
and-
song feels good live.
Yeah,
That song feels great live.
it does.
It has
It's
a good...
we were talking about like with the band, like you just play the record all the time. That's
Yeah.
like everybody's got Sunday gigs, and
Uh-huh.
it's just like you're just playing the record. Just do what they did.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and a lot of it's very straightforward, and it's like, man, it feels good to like groove on stage again.
Uh-huh.
Because like none of us like groove anymore. It's all like
Yeah.
do 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 do. You know, that's like all you do. So
Yeah.
it's been nice to like put a little bounce
Have
in it,
some
and,
funk in it.
and have some funk in it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Far-Flung Tin Can podcast, episode number
17.
17. Special thanks to Stephen Kawakami for setting all the cameras up. For Caruthers on audio, Jonathan Warbay, video editing, and Kyle Philippi for all of the craziness he drags us into.
And Jonathan Ward is not just the video editing; he is the podcast. How would you say it? He's the producer.
Director?
He's the director.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing the whole show. He tells us where to be and when, and then he doesn't show up. I hope you start feeling better, Warbay. Fiend.